And hello everybody, this is Blade of Chaos here again with Dylan from Clueless Gamers and Blake.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Um,
I don't know.
I am Blake. I do videos on a channel called Atomy YGO, which is basically a Yu-Gi-Oh channel where I do replays of like matches of Yu-Gi-Oh, unboxings, bit of anime stuff, and I've only just started, so it's kind of trying to find what to do at the moment.
Dylan, you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. I'm Dylan from Clueless Gamers. My main specialty is probably in the anime. I'd love to play the card game, but I really haven't gotten into it. I played it years ago, and I do episode reviews of Arc 5. I do podcasts. This is like my fourth one I've done. I just started doing them a couple weeks ago, and I do like theories, top five lists. I do those every 3 to 4 weeks on Clueless Gamers and Q&A videos on Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, which is my backup secondary channel in case Clueless Gamers does get taken down. So thank you again for having me on Blade of Chaos.
Well, I'm always welcome to having anybody on now. Thanks to you, we're basically doing this podcast because you were the one who actually kind of, not directly, but indirectly showed me the new opening sequence for Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 and the whole darkness dimension thing actually just kind of popped up on that intro or
Right.
opening, and it just kind of got me thinking, like, it's just like some endless possibilities, regarding this dark
Y-
mist that we all seen in this new opening.
yeah, yeah. It's tough to really, it's really tough to say what it is. The thing about it is, it's there for a reason. It's not like, oh, the people who created it, the animators, just put it in there for no reason. They put it in there on purpose. There is a message that they are trying to convey that when Arc 5 is done, we'll probably look back at that and say, oh, that's what they were getting to. The message that they are trying to convey, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say and the people in the comments, because I, I really have no idea what this could be, but it definitely is interesting. It's very interesting.
It's the thing that animators do. They put something in, but if they did it like they did loads of like, little kind of galaxy kind of things, it wouldn't have been like so big. But just one
Right,
thing, and it's on
right.
purpose.
Right, exactly. It's on purpose. That's definitely that's I agree with you 100%.
But what I got from it is like, I don't know, maybe, like, there's two ways of looking at this. Maybe it's something that we already know about, but it's going to be like re-referenced. Maybe something from an old show, or something that we have already seen. Or it could be something completely new and something that we have never seen, by watching the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. I don't know about you guys, but I'm watching it since
Yeah,
the original like Toei animation.
yeah. Yeah, same here, same here. Yeah, you make some good points. Another thing that it could be in terms of something new is maybe it is a fifth dimension. I'm not. I know that's been the rumor of this show ever since it started. Ever since Yuto, right before he merged with Yuya and died, said there were four dimensions. Everyone was like, well, this is the fifth show. Shouldn't there be a fifth dimension? So whether it is a fifth dimension or not, maybe it's just a symbol of the plan that's going on in Fusion, that it's like kind of destroying the space-time continuum, and they're trying to merge the worlds, and that's why it's there. I'm really not sure. There's just right at this point there's just so many possibilities on what it actually could be that anyone's best guess is really as good as anyone else's.
I kind of don't think it's dimension because when you got that opening sequence, you got all of the dimensions as like planets, and you got like some sort of galaxy behind it. So it could be
Yeah, no,
something
I actually,
else. Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. Yeah, I think it's something else too. Because I've said from the beginning, I never thought there was a fifth dimension. And as the point you just said, right, there's four globes, four Earths, so to speak. And, this is like, it wouldn't be another dimension. If it was another dimension, it would be whole. This looks like kind of a mist, kind of like a storm, so to speak. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you 100%, Blake.
Well, I don't know. It's like, what harm could it possibly get, for Leo Akaba's plans to come into practice, like they become real? What possible, harm could be done by doing this?
Well, I think maybe it seems you know, it's weird. It seems he needs the four U girls obviously for something, and he needs, I would assume, the four U boys for something as well. And it also seems that he needs people to be carded because I remember the girl that Asuka escaped the island with. They said, "Oh, you can still help out the Arc Area Project," and they carded her. So it's almost like they need. And when they show that green machine in the opening, you can see the outline of cards. So it's almost like cards and people's souls power this machine. So maybe it's just that it's kind of foreshadowing that this machine is destroying like the entire universe, and that's why this kind of storm is starting in fusion because that's where this storm is kind of being built. And if it continues, that fog that's behind the fusion dimension is going to cover the entire universe, and it's going to form a new world. I mean, maybe that's something that could be said about it. But again, I'm really not sure. There's just so many different possibilities that it really could be.
Well, it's not like have any of you or all of you seen the season 4 of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX?
Yes.
And the one that hasn't been dubbed yet. But what I got from it, like Truman, basically the low form of darkness. He emerged from cards. So
I think it's what we were talking about the other day.
well, yeah, he emerged from cards. It's like there has to, maybe there is some connection from like people getting carded in order to form, like, you know, then like Blake, your theory then makes like absolute sense. You know, the one that's on your channel, which will be in the description if anyone wants to actually watch it. Maybe they're actually trying to like revive darkness by, you know, or Night Shroud by using like the 4-dimension fusing aspect of the plan.
Yeah, well, when I made that Kaiba video that I thought maybe he was the main antagonist, I know obviously now that's not going to be true. Even at the time when I made it, you know, it was speculation. I wouldn't have bet money on it. You know, it was obviously a stretch. A lot of people gave their own opinions and said, you know, I think it's going to be this, I think it's going to be this. And the top two characters that I saw come up was Supreme King Judai, you know, Hao, the Dark Leader, and the other person that I saw was Darkness, was Night Shroud. Those were the two prominent names. So, yeah, a lot of people do speculate that if there is another force at work here that's not Leo Akaba being the main villain, which I still don't think he is the main villain. I think there is a higher force that maybe it is Night Shroud, and you know, there is a darkness that exists within Yuya. He did say when he was banished at the end of GX, you know, I'll be back. And you know, it definitely is, and you could definitely make the case that maybe Night Shroud and maybe they are trying to resurrect darkness, and maybe that is the symbol here, that fog is kind of darkness, and that's what's going to cover the entire universe. It's definitely possible.
What I was thinking was maybe they don't know they're resurrecting darkness. Maybe they're trying to go for their own goals, but in turn they accidentally resurrected him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. Yeah, because yeah, the thing is, darkness. It's weird because Truman is one of the most, I think, intriguing characters because you really, if you think about it, I mean, who is he? There's like multiple versions of him. They're all over the place. They form, as you said before, Blade, with as in cards, and they just kind of come out of nowhere. He was always a character that really intrigued me because there's like very little backstory. It's almost kind of creepy. So they didn't give enough backstory where, you know, a certain thing needs to happen. And I guess the point that I'm trying to say is they can kind of, it would make sense for these Trumans and Night Shroud to resurrect because, you know, darkness exists within everyone. And even Meru, that fortune teller girl, when she was reading Yuya, she said there's a darkness that's fighting with both of them, Yuya and Yuto. So, you know, is this the same darkness? And to what Blake is saying, maybe they're doing something else and maybe in turn they're resurrecting darkness on accident. It's definitely possible. I mean, it really is. It's not a bad theory at all.
Well, what I see, like, throughout the whole Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime or show, like, throughout the whole different universes that our characters have been in, there have been multiple, like, situations where villains would card people. If you remember, you know, in Duel Monsters we had Pegasus, who basically using the power of his Millennium Eye turned the Kaiba brothers and Solomon Moto into cards. And we got Darts, who basically, like, in the beginning actually, you know, his henchmen, I guess you could say.
You turn Weevil and Rex into cards.
Weevil and Rex into cards. So I don't know if there is, like, maybe there is some sort of connection. It could be that maybe Darts is the one behind all of this, because as we all know, he was defeated, but we don't know what happened in between Duel Monsters and Arc 5. Maybe the Orichalcos returned, and if Darts didn't die for like 10,000 years, why would he be dead now?
Yeah, Darts, I guess it is possible, but I'm trying to remember. Darts was resurrected, or not resurrected. He was redeemed at the end of that, wasn't he? Wasn't he like, I don't remember that Doma arc well. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
fourth season
I believe he was redeemed, but
yeah,
he wasn't redeemed.
he was redeemed.
Okay, he was.
And
Okay.
Orichalcos was the one that kept him alive all this time, I think.
Right, right. That makes sense. Right, that's like an arc that I'm fuzzy. I know Monsters was obviously the one that I watched so long. I gotta that really. But yeah, it could be. The thing is, that would be, man, that would make the timeline a hell to figure, as if it's not already bad enough to figure out the Yu-Gi-Oh timeline. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a new one. I've never actually heard Darts' name being thrown around, but I guess at this point, anyone's guess is really as good as anyone else's.
Because like Leo Akaba is not the type of guy, when you look at him, you wouldn't say like he's the main villain, because as you said in your Kaiba video, he actually really reminds me of Shepard, like
Right.
really, like his appearance and even the like figures, the roles that they're taking, are fairly similar. And the one in charge at the Duel Academy in GX was Kaiba, but it doesn't make sense that Kaiba would be like in this timeline if it isn't like an alternate version, which would make sense, but it still kind of doesn't, because we haven't seen any Duel Monsters characters appear yet. So I was wondering, like, what could this upright figure be? Like, it is possible for it to be Darkness, because we know that Darkness is endless. We know that he cannot be defeated, as he's stated himself. Darts, possibly, since the Orichalcos is gone, it could be that, Darts is gone too by the time that Arc 5 takes place. So there isn't basically like any evidence that, it can be nobody except Darkness, maybe. And, since signers are gone in this timeline, like, there's, the Dark Signers. And, that nobody actually makes the case, except it could be that, there is a entirely new entity or a new character which is, like, in charge of everything else.
Right, or it even could just be that Leo Akaba, even though I don't think he is the main guy that in charge of everything, because I think he is. He does remind me a lot of a Chancellor Shepard. The thing is, when I had made that Kaiba theory video, Arc 5 was at like episode 90. I thought it had the potential to go the amount of time GX ran, like 180, 190, but obviously that's not the case. And if it had that kind of time, I thought, you'd have time to build it and make sense. Obviously now it would feel, I think, kind of rushed, even though there are 30 episodes left and they're already rushing through the show, really. But yeah, the thing with Darkness is, if it is Darkness, I really agree with what Blake said earlier, that it would kind of be accidental, because I can't see Darkness being in charge of Academia and being in charge of Leo Akaba, unless he's kind of brainwashing everyone. But they're not really showing the same signs that brainwashed people showed in GX. And what I mean by that is, remember Fujiwara Yusuke, he was crazy, that guy, until Judai used Honest to break through to him. And the big difference here is Judai really needed to break through to him. I mean, it was extremely difficult. You have characters on Academia like a Serena, like a Sora, that have already betrayed Academia, and if Darkness was in charge of Academia the same way he was trying to take over the world in GX, it wouldn't have been that easy for people like Serena and Sora to come out of it, unless Darkness is much weaker than he was in GX. So that's why I don't think he'd be overshadowing the whole thing. But I definitely think, again, back to what Blake said earlier, it's very possible that it's just going to happen on accident, and that's what's going to occur from this whole operation.
Adding on to that, I don't think it would have been. I think they are accidentally resurrecting Darkness, because obviously Darkness has control by Truman. think that's how it worked. And then we have Grace, Gloria, Edo, and all those who are turned against Academia.
Right.
Well,
Right.
yeah, but I was thinking the other day, like, from all the, there has to be some connection with Leo Akava's plans to maybe, I don't know, Yubel, because if you recall, like, the whole GX era was taking place like mainly around Academia, the Academia from GX, which was Dual Academy basically, and the Yubel was the main antagonist. You know, she revealed herself as the main antagonist of season 3, and her objectives or goals were basically the same as Leo Akaba's. So, you know, there's Academia and a person that tries to fuse all the dimensions together, which is now basically happening in Arc 5 once more. So do you think there's basically like any sort of connection between Academy from GX and the Academy in Arc 5? Or maybe the whole situation around fusing dimensions?
Oof, that's tough. Because basically, if there was a similarity between that, the Academy in Arc 5 and the Academy in GX, you'd have to say there'd have to be a similarity between the Heartland from Zexal and Arc 5, and the Synchro Dimension from 5Ds and Arc 5. You'd figure that they'd all be very similar. So, you know, is there a connection? I'm not sure, and I'm kind of leaning that there's not, but I don't know. That's a tricky question. I feel like at this point they have so many things to explain that it would kind of be very confusing if this is the same Academia from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. But with that being said, I guess it's still possible. But if you asked me, do I think it's the same Synchro Dimension from, you know, 5Ds, I would have said no. And do I think it's the same Heartland City from Zexal? I would have said no. It is the same in a way, but there are differences, and the big differences are the characters that appear. And without a Judai, without a Jaden on the timeline, I don't think there would be a Yubel, because remember, Judai, I'm pretty sure, was the one who really brought Yubel into fruition. We haven't seen Yusei, we haven't seen Yuma when we went to Synchro and Heartland. And for that reason, I don't think we're going to see Judai. I don't think we're going to see any main character. And because of that, because Judai has such a strong connection with Yubel, I mean, they merged by the end of the show, that I don't think that Yubel will have any factor into it. But in terms of it being the Academy from GX, or a very similar Academy, I still feel like it's not, but who knows? I mean, maybe it is. Also, the layout is a little different, because the Academy, the building was a lot smaller. Like, there was a lot more land on the island, and it had a volcano. This Academia, I've paid attention. I've tried to look for that volcano. I haven't seen the volcano. And also, it seems like there's really not as much land. It seems like there's buildings covering the entire island. Like, it seems like you walk on the island, you walk 10 feet and you're at a wall. So, I mean, I might be wrong. I guess we'll find out when they get to the island. But I think there are pretty big differences in terms of the one from GX and Arc 5.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning on your side on this one, because, like, there isn't, like, structure-wise or building-wise, there isn't any similarities, you know, except they're all taking place on an island. But I don't know, like the same ranking system of students appears in Arc 5 and in GX. You know, we see the two characters that were actually attending Academy in GX. Maybe Aster didn't at the beginning, but he did at the end. And yeah, it just leaves me boggling. Like, why? It's sort of mind-blowing. Like, why would they reference Academy if there wouldn't be like any sort of connection to like the original Academy?
Right. Well, and that's why it's so confusing. Like, and to add on to your point, why is there another Asuka? Why is there another Asuka Tenjoin, Alexis Rhodes? Why is there another Aster Phoenix and Edo? And what's weird about Edo too, and something that kind of irked me, is he did not go to the Academy. I know he enrolled for a couple days, kind of just to scout out Judai during the SIU arc. But, you know, he didn't ever really officially attend Duel Academy. But in this timeline, he does. So, and why are there clones? And as you say, why are there the same ranking system? So there's just a lot of very strange things that you can look and say, oh, well, when you look at this side, it's got to be the same. There's got to be references. And then when you look at the other side of the equation, it's like, nah, there's no way that they're the same. So it's just it's very annoying for people like us three to try to dissect what really is going on and what relationship there is to the previous shows, if there really is even any relationship at all.
I feel like GX and 5Ds and also Duel Monsters is the only canon ones. That's probably just from me, in my own opinion, because I like those three the most, but I feel like Zexal and Arc 5 are their own thing.
Yeah, you know, I never really believed that. I always, I guess, like to try to force myself to think that they are all on one timeline. I plan on making a timeline video once Arc 5 ends, but I'm starting to actually agree with you, Blake, because we know for a fact Duel Monsters GX and 5Ds are canon. They're on the same timeline. There's no doubt in the world about that. But Zexal and Arc 5, especially Arc 5, I think I can make the case on maybe where Zexal is on the original 3 timeline, but Arc 5 is starting to get really, really impossible to make that case. So I still kind of believe Zexal might be related to the first 3, and I think I can make reasons on why there might be a connection. But Arc 5, every episode, it gets tougher and tougher to try to relate these to any timeline to the first 4, especially the first 3.
But you know, we know for a fact. Like, let me ask you a question, Dylan. Like, you know, on aside, basically, we know that you know in the first episode of GX, Jaden met Yugi, right?
Right.
Which means that GX and Duel Monsters basically are on the same timeline. We know that for a fact.
That's a fact, right?
They were like in Domino City on a school trip, and you know we saw Solomon, we saw everyone, and then 5Ds takes place. I choose to believe that 5Ds takes. Oh, sorry, that was just my Windows. Never mind. That 5Ds actually takes place.
You're good.
Takes place sometime after GX. Then why wouldn't like Zexal also take place sometime after 5Ds and Arc 5 a lot of time after Duel Monsters?
Well, that, if you believe the linear timeline, then that is what some people do believe. And that's something that I always wanted to believe, because I always like to think that, you know, Zexal was way in the future and Arc 5 was maybe even further in the future. But I think what might just have happened is they're in their own universe. They're scripted to be in their own universe. And what I mean by that is the first 3 are in their own world, and that's it. It's just the first 3, and there's things in 5Ds like the bully from the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters episode, or one of the first ones that bullied Yugi, Joey,
Ushio.
and yes, Ushio. Thank you. He is he's confirmed. Like the writers confirmed he's the same guy that's the Duel
Officer
Rider
Trudge.
cop.
Officer
Yes.
Trudge from 5Ds. Yeah, I know. Which doesn't make sense at all, because he looks younger, if not the same as he did in the Toei animation, which took place like maybe 20-30 years before 5Ds. I'm not sure.
Yeah, when you try to break down the years between Duel Monsters GX, I've always thought, and I think it's confirmed, that GX was 10 years after Duel Monsters. But then when you look at it from, you consider Ushio, and you consider where GX took place and where 5Ds would have to take place in relationship to Ushio aging from Duel Monsters to 5Ds, the years make no sense, as you say. But because of that fact, we know Duel Monsters and 5Ds on the same timeline. What we don't know is Zexal. Sure, it could be in the future, as you say, and there's reasons why I think Zexal might be in the future, because there are, when Yuma walked into this the like dojo training area, there were carved statues of Yugi's monsters, of Kaiba's monsters, of Judai's monsters, and I'm pretty sure a few other ones. And for that to be a coincidence, I think that's a little too out there. Now, there's no mention of Yusei, there's no mention of Synchros even in the show, and when I make my timeline video, I think I'll go over why I think that's the case and why I think Zexal might be an alternate timeline to 5Ds, where it's like Duel Monsters GX and Zexal are canon. Duel Monsters GX and 5Ds are canon in their own rights. But that's kind of another theory that I'm working on. But Arc 5, there's besides these, clones and these very similar characters and settings, there's no mention. There's really no mention, besides obviously what I just stated, to anything from Duel Monsters 5Ds GX. No events. There's no events that occurred on those timelines that we can relate to in Arc 5. And I think that's why it's tough to say, and why a lot of people at this point do agree with Blake, that the first three are canon, and then Zexal and Arc 5 are their own thing.
Yeah, I did notice with the Dojo and Zexal, they got Neos there, so it could be canon, because Neos was created by Judai.
Right, exactly. And I think they had Blue Eyes and the Dark Magician Girl, and I feel like that's too weird of a coincidence to say, oh yeah, they just picked random monsters and carved them on the walls. I feel like that's definitely a reference to Yugi and Judai.
But yeah, it just doesn't, like, what are they going to do from here? That's what I was thinking, like the other day. Basically, they're in a position, like the writers of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, they're in a position in which, like, they're bringing back all these different characters. Where are they gonna go from there? Like the only possible thing they could do is, like what Dylan told me the other day, is to make, like, maybe, I don't know, after Dark Side of Dimensions, maybe they would do something, I don't know, maybe some sort of mini-series. Maybe they could do, like, GX Remastered, in which the main character wouldn't be Judai, but somebody else from the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX universe. But it's really, they have ran out, like, in all possibilities right now, because they're bringing back all these different characters meant to be the final show. What's the, like where are they gonna go from here? Like, at the position we are now, I wouldn't be surprised if Arc 5 would be the final straw, or maybe the final dot on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise.
Well, let me add to what you just said. There's I always thought Arc 5 was it. I was one of those people that said, I think this is it. They're bringing all these characters back. And I think Arc 5 was intended to be the final show, even though now you can say GX and 5Ds. I don't know about Zexal, but I know GX and 5Ds were both intended to be it. And maybe Arc 5 was intended to be it. TV Tokyo just kind of released their financial statements, and this interests me because I'm, in a school of business at college, so I'm interested in the side of things. And I think for the first time, I saw a tweet somewhere, for the first time in 15 years, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime produced more profit and revenue than the Pokemon anime did. And we all know how popular Pokemon is, more on the video game side of things, but still the anime is pretty popular. They have a very strong fan base too. So I think the fact that Arc 5 is doing this well, this by the way was from early 2015 to March 2016. So this was basically statements from the past year, not including the last 4 months. Because Arc 5 was doing so well, I think that's when they realized, you know what, I think we can make another show. So I really am actually starting to theorize Arc 5 was supposed to be it because it sold so well. I think it was their number 3 top grossing in terms of revenue show anime, and Pokemon was number 4. I think because of that, and they realized how well it was selling and how much, I guess, fans were enjoying it, I think that's the reason that they decided they're going to make a 6th show. And that's why I'm kind of leaning that they are going to do a 6th series. What they're going to do, as you say, I have no idea. I'd love to see like a female lead. I don't think that'll happen, but I'd love to see it, just kind of change it up a little bit. But yeah, maybe instead of doing another summoning method, maybe add a new kind of trap card or a new magic card. I wouldn't mind that. But it's going to be, it's definitely going to be really interesting to see where they go from here. But I was always a skeptic that this was it, but now I'm starting to believe that this is not going to be the final show, that there will be, especially based on the financial statements that just came out a week ago or so. I think that Yu-Gi-Oh!, at least the anime, is going to continue after this.
Blake, your view on this?
Yeah, just going to a different point. The Dark Side Dimension animation was amazing, like how it's animated. And when I saw that, I thought, can we get Yu-Gi-Oh! Reboot or remaster? So I think after Arc 5, maybe do like remaster of the original, add a few bits in from the manga, then do a sixth show.
But what I was talking
I
to I was talking to BYG Igami on Twitter like 2 and maybe 3 days ago by my account, and what he told me is like I thought about doing a theory video on what's happening with Jaden when Dark Side of Dimensions takes place, but what I got from the conversation with Igami was that Judai or anyone else didn't exist in this timeline because the Dark Side of Dimensions follows the manga, not the anime. So
correct.
I don't know. Maybe if they make a remaster, just as Blake said, they wouldn't make any sort of profit on the original, like the physical card game, because if they return to all these like old school tactics or something else, like I know that anime specter wise, fans are gonna go crazy. Like we gotta take that as a fact, not as a possibility. But you know, they wouldn't Konami or TV Tokyo or anybody wouldn't have anything new to sell to people, which isn't a good like maybe Dylan, you would know more about this because you study business, and I'm not exactly well known in this field, I guess you could say.
Right. No, you're definitely right. But just to kind of go on Blake's point, I would love to see a reboot because I've seen a few clips from Dark Side of Dimensions, and the animation looks beautiful. And I'm not someone who really notices the animation in episode on to episode. The animation in that, especially seeing all these old characters look the way they do in that movie, is beautiful. Now here's the thing. A reboot would be an issue for them because I think the main purpose of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime is to sell their cards. I mean, that is the main purpose. Unfortunately, it is. I'd love if they just focus on writing a really strong story. Not to say the stories haven't been bad, and I love the anime. And, if I thought the storylines were bad and badly written, I wouldn't watch it. But, I've watched every single episode, so I'm not going to complain from that standpoint. But the truth is they really want to sell something. So to maybe kind of make both points work, I would love if they did a reboot, or maybe not a reboot, but kind of a new series that takes place after Dark Side of Dimensions. It would be in its own universe because again, the Dark Side of Dimensions universe isn't from the manga. It has nothing to do with the anime, or at least that's what I've heard, and I'm pretty sure that can be confirmed because I haven't seen the movie yet. Obviously, subs haven't come out. I have no idea when they will, but you do it after Dark Side of Dimensions ends. You do like a regular 120 episode series with Yugi, with Kaiba, and with maybe Agami. I'm pretty sure that's the main villain or the main antagonist in the movie. And you use that animation quality. And even though it's not a remaster of the first series, it's kind of similar. You can bring back, I think, a lot of old fans that maybe haven't watched since the first show, and you add a new summoning method that maybe in the first episode Kaiba Corp creates, because it would make sense. And so you have your regular summoning, you have your fusion, you have ritual, because those existed in that dimension or in that world already, and you don't have synchros, XZs, or pendulums, but you have, you still have fusions, normal summoning, and rituals, and you have this now fourth new method. I think that would be kind of cool. I think that would make both worlds kind of happy, and I think it's an idea that maybe they will look to do, because to see these characters rebooted, as Blake said earlier, in the beautiful animation that they are in, I think it would make a lot of sense to do something like that.
But from a business standpoint, would it be okay if, I don't know, TV Tokyo or Kazuki Takahashi or anyone who's in charge in like the new movie, to make a series which would be like a sequel to the movie?
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would be good. I think from a business standpoint, it would be very good. Obviously, I don't know how well the movie sold in Japan. I don't know how well it did. I haven't really looked into that, so I can't give a definitive answer. But the truth is, you bring back, what they're doing in Arc 5 is they're bringing back these old characters, and they're doing it in a way where they're advertising these characters. On Twitter, months before Jack and Crow showed up, they said, Jack and Crow are going to appear in Arc 5. And I think a lot of fans that maybe skipped Zexal, and there were a lot of fans that skipped Zexal just because they didn't enjoy Zexal, and the last show they watched was 5Ds. I think a lot of people who maybe gave up on Yu-Gi-Oh because of Zexal said, wow, Jack and Crow are in Arc 5, I guess I got to give the show a chance, and they did that in a really good way, and that's kind of what I think they would be doing if they rebooted a show. They'd say, you know, a new show coming out that stars Yugi Moto and Kaiba, because remember, these are the characters that created the Yu-Gi-Oh universe, that created the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, probably, definitely the two most iconic characters in the entire Yu-Gi-Oh universe. I think it's tough to argue against that, Yugi and Kaiba, and you bring back all these old characters and you kind of reboot it, but you don't really reboot it because you're writing a new story, and at the same time you add another summoning method to keep, you know, the new cards and the new styles in the real life dueling world keep flowing. I think it would work really well from a business standpoint if they did do something like that. But another issue, which you just mentioned, Takahashi, I'm almost positive he worked on the movie. He hasn't worked on Arc 5 at all. I actually think he's done with the Yu-Gi-Oh anime in terms of episode by episode basis. I might be wrong on that, but if he is, he would have to give, I guess, the rights to use the original characters, and I'm not sure he would want to do something like that. So that could be another issue as well.
Well, yeah, I completely agree with you on this one. But as I see it, like all the stuff that they have been doing is to basically, you know, if you take Arc 5 into perspective, for it to be it, because, you know, the only logical move that they would go from there is to close the anime and that would be it, like Arc 5, the final show. What they're doing with the movie is basically bringing back all these different old characters from the Duel Monsters, and, you know, again, that to be it. Because when I read through, I'm not gonna go in detail, but I read through the spoilers for the movie on the Tumblr post. You know, so somebody actually, I think it was Agami actually who posted it, and I just checked it out. As it says there, like they go through like a lot of character development, more, you know, character development wise than dueling wise. So I believe that, you know, once Arc 5 and the movie are finished, we're not gonna see anything else except maybe a, as you said, Dylan, before, like a female, like a female character that would be like the main protagonist of the 6th Yu-Gi-Oh show.
Yeah, I would love if they did something like that, but given how females usually get treated in in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, I would be very surprised if they announced a 6th character and the character was a female protagonist. I'd be pleasantly surprised, but I would be very surprised.
Well, I think that would be great. I would definitely love to see a female lead in the new Yu-Gi-Oh show, if there is one. But maybe if they, like, I don't know, maybe make a sequel to Arc 5. I haven't actually thought about it in that way until now, but, you know, if they make a sequel to Arc 5, maybe they would make, like, you know, but I don't know. I assume that at the end of the series, like, you guys could correct me here if you think something different than I do. If they, like, Yuto should get his own body at the end of the series. Now, maybe do a, like, I don't know, in like Arc 5 perspective, but, you know, what's happening in Heartland, since the Heartland, you know, got through a beating from the fusion dimension and actually needs rebuilding as of now. So, you know, maybe make a sequel in just like the Heartland arc, but much more in depth, and you know, maybe like a sequel to the Heartland arc we've seen in Arc 5.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, they could do something like that. Really, they could do whatever the hell they want to do as long as they add, I don't know why I said hell, but as long as they add another summoning method, which really you can kind of do in any situation except doing another what's it called? A sequel to Duel Monsters GX 5Ds and Zexal. Maybe not 5Ds and Zexal, because we don't know if there's anything after 5Ds or after Zexal. You can't really do a new sequel to GX, because if they do a sequel and they do a 6th show, the main purpose is to promote a new summoning method. That's why they do these shows.
But they did,
and if you did it to Duel Monsters and GX,
because like as I heard and as I read through the spoilers, they're not basically 100% correct, but what I got from this is they made a kind of like a reboot of the old characters, because you know we haven't seen the cast in over a decade, and you know they introduced a new summoning method, believe it or not, in the Duel Monsters kind of like spectrum or universe. So they could do like
Well, the reason I don't think they can for Duel Monsters in GX is because in Duel Monsters, if you do a sequel and you add a new summoning method, all of a sudden it's like, well, where is that summoning method in GX and 5Ds? If you add one to the end of GX, where was it in 5Ds? It wouldn't really make sense from a timeline perspective, but to do something in that movie, that makes perfect sense, and that's completely understandable because, again, that movie has no effect on the universe that GX and 5Ds later down the road take place in. So there's no kind of feeling that's like, well, I don't know why no one in GX or 5Ds used this method. It's kind of like, oh, Dark Side of Dimensions, it was its own universe, it was a manga universe. So it makes perfect sense and it works from that perspective.
oh, now I see
That
why
makes no sense. It's
now I see, Dylan, why you said like that the um, Zexal is like in a different timeline or universe. Um, maybe because like in 5Ds we've seen like a few fusion users or fusion summoners. So in Zexal, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't seen any synchro summons or
No
synchro.
synchros.
there was a fusion, I think, but no synchro.
Yeah, but I think there is fusion, yeah. But no, yeah, definitely no synchros.
But if there is fusion, then Zexal and GX are on the same timeline, and 5Ds. So
Right. Right. But if there is fusion, Zexal might just be because in Duel Monsters there was fusion. So you right. In Duel Monsters there was fusion. So right, it's not like GX created fusion. Like 5Ds created synchros. GX just really promoted fusion, but it didn't create fusion because we did see fusions in the original anime.
well, yeah, I see where you're going with this. I definitely do. But you know, as of now, like, what do you think, guys? Like, uh, why there aren't any I don't know, why aren't there any synchro summons in Zexal?
I personally believe it's because um, I think the Zero Reverse incident, which I mean, I'll get more in depth on this when I do my timeline video. The Zero Reverse incident in the Zexal timeline never happened. So when Zero Reverse happened, and that's I'm pretty sure what created the Synchro monsters, or Synchros might have been before Zero Reverse, but Zero Reverse is obviously what destroyed the city. Zero Reverse never happened. I don't know what caused Zero Reverse not to happen, but because of that, the timeline split, and you have a timeline that contains Duel Monsters GX, Zero Reverse happens 5Ds, and an alternate timeline that contains these same exact events, Duel Monsters GX, but Zero Reverse doesn't happen, and it splits off and it goes to Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. That's personally why I think that there's no synchros in Zexal.
But you know that's why we don't see main characters in Arc 5. Oh my god, this just kind of hit me. Like, what if there is, well, like, you know about the infamous multiverse theory that, you know, a lot of physicists have been talking about.
Yes, yeah, that there's multiple timelines, right, and
Multiple
universes.
timelines, realities where, you know, different choices occur, or, you know, depending on which choices you make along the way. But
So basically, if I eat a piece of cake, that's one timeline. Another timeline, I don't eat the piece of cake. There's two
yeah,
different timelines.
Exactly. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
That's
exactly.
the best
yeah.
way to explain it.
That is a good
Exactly.
way to explain
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. That's it. So we got like a timeline in which Yusei wasn't even born in the first place. There is no Signer arc, and that's the Synchro Arc 5 timeline. And we got like a timeline in which, you know, Jaden was never born, and Academia was basically an evil place and not a place where, you know, people could go and learn about, you know, different types of, you know, cards, you know, basically learn dual monsters, and rather a negative like war zone place even. That's the, you know, that's basically like another timeline in which you know, there was no Kronos, there was no Judai, there was no Edo, there was nobody. So maybe that's the solution to solving like all the Arc 5 fiascos, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could be. I mean that's a theory in its own. That's a theory that I do not necessarily believe. Actually, I'm not sure if you even stated the theory. The theory that a lot of people believe is these are what would have happened had the main characters not been involved. I don't believe that. That's a very popular one. I think what you're just trying to say is this is an alternate version that of certain events didn't occur, and that's why the main characters aren't exist because they were never born on these timelines. Just because I really don't picture Academia turning into what it does in GX if Jaden doesn't attend the school, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I do believe that they're very similar timelines, and I just think that there's a multitude of events that occurred that made these timelines the way they are. But honestly, the more I talk about it and the more I think about it, the more I just get a headache because it's just so it goes so over my head sometimes because it's just very hard to figure out and wrap your mind around it.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I gotta agree with you 110% on you, like on this one. Um, so guys, any final words? Anything? Because we're reaching an hour almost.
Well, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I thank you guys for doing this, and it was nice to do a video with you at Teme Yu-Gi-Oh. It was an honor. And Blade, thank you for having me on again. And anytime you want me to come on, just let me know. And I hope you guys enjoyed and leave a comment down below to anything that you found interesting. I guess that's my closing message.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of theories that anyone could say. So anyway, just thank you for having me on. And
No problem.
yeah.
Always, anytime. Like, definitely. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Blake, for coming on. And I really appreciate everything that you guys done since. And this have been us talking about random theories and stuff that might occur in Arc 5 and in Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. So, if you enjoyed, these guys' channels will be down in the description below, but, you know, subscribe to them if you wanna. Not forcing anyone to do anything. And we'll see you guys in the next video, maybe a podcast together, you know. So,
yeah, thank you guys for watching.
same. Bye.